Well, welcome all. I'm out here now on Playgrounds track just out north of Bruthen, and this is the start of our 2021 high country cruise. We haven't done one for nearly a year now because of COVID, and this is our first opportunity now to get out. So we're out here for 4 nights, 5 days of travelling and seeing what we can find, and it should be pretty good. There's just 2 of us now. There was going to be 5, but circumstances changed and we are now reduced down to 2 vehicles, which is okay. It meant we could change the date, and at the same time it sort of allows us to be a bit more flexible perhaps with where we're going, what we're doing. The weather today is bloody nice. Hopefully it stays that way. It's been pretty shitty here for several weeks, and it does look like it's going to be raining later on the week. So hopefully it's not too bad, because it is nice when it's so good weather like today. Just went through a river crossing here and stopping for a bit of a lunch break just to see what it's like here. The river itself is actually quite nice, but it's not really a spot here for camping from what I can see from here. It's all very, very rocky, not something that you'd really want to be spending your night on unless you basically slept on a stretcher off the ground. Swag certainly won't do it. And it looks like there's been people around here before. Lots of footprints, in fact, yep, shoe prints and things as people have been sinking in the mud. Probably kiddlywinks who just don't have quite the pace. A bit of a funny looking little knoll here on the river. It's actually very pleasant and quite warm actually. My travelling companion said it was 31 degrees outside according to the vehicle, and sure as hell feels like it. So this was the wee little river crossing that we just did. Nothing too dramatic, quite shallow in fact, but I dare say that come winter and plenty of rains and that, you won't be crossing this too easily like most of the rivers out here. In fact, if not at all. I don't know why they cut it like that either. It's just, could have gone a couple of feet more and you'd be fine. Day 1, we are camped at Bentley Plains. There's Bentley Plains Hut, which has been refurbished not so long ago. We were going to go to Moscow Villa, but there's a caravan and others there, so that's taken up. The car, the hut that comes along with Bentley Plains campsite. And there's a long drop in the distance over there as well. Generally it's not too bad. There's certainly bits of bog hole and so on around here like thus, so it's different. If it's wet, the grassed area over there gets pretty manky and not really very nice for camping, but I think we might just chuck the stretchers into the little hut and sleep in there tonight. Saves putting up a tent and whatnot, and if it's going to be either a dry night or a wet night, either way, if it's clear skies, there's going to be a lot of dew on the tent, and that's always a bit of a bugger to pack up, so we might just stay in the hut. And for people who might be interested, that is how my back of my patrol packs up. Waco fridge on the side, I've got a chainsaw in there, fuel, water, aluminium box with all my food and cooking stuff inside, chairs, the stretcher is in there, tent on the top with a mattress thing that I put on the stretcher, some recovery gear or snatch straps and T-trunk protectors, a bit of apple cider, a little table that I've got in there, a shovel is in the back there. And that is all the stuff that I need to go camping out for a week if I need be, or more. The food that I have is all pre-made. I just cook it in a little $50 hot box, and it works a treat. Now the other bits and pieces I've got, back of the car is just full of junk. Hopefully that'll load up a little bit. In there, most of the stuff in there is my camera gear. There's sleeping bags in there, some clothing, sheepskin thing for the seat in case it gets rather chilly at night, and not much else. It looks pretty full, but there's not all that much in there. It's just nicely padded out so the cameras and that are fairly safe. And my main video camera just sits on the front seat of the car, as you may hopefully be able to see, with bits and pieces in there. So that's generally handy to grab if I want to video something that I don't want to video on the phone, on the gimbal. And it seems to work quite well. It's a bit of an arrangement I've got. So there wasn't much happening today as far as the driving went. It was all pretty ordinary. We had a lot of easy tracks there. The grading that they've done because of the fires and so on have changed the nature of the tracks quite considerably. And so while we had low range driving a fair bit, it wasn't difficult in any way. Hopefully we'll find something more interesting further on, but this will be our first night stop, and it looks like it's going to be a bit overcast, so it's not going to be freezing cold. Hopefully the wood that we can get is going to keep us going for the night, and we'll see how things pan out in the morning. First days was usually trips planned in advance. I've planned the trip for all the days so far, but I think we'll just change things as they go along. There's no real hard and fast rules when it comes to our high country cruises. We just play it by ear. Quite often the tracks might be closed that we want to do, or somehow blocked, so we just have to divert. So we just always play it by ear and follow our nose. But this is a nice little area for camping, and generally a nice little area for visitation and whatnot. Realign that. This is not supposed to entertain horses and so forth inside here, just campers, but it doesn't really make much difference. The maintenance of the cattle grid here is pretty ordinary. Horses and cattle and deer and whatever else can quite easily walk through. As you can notice, the rocket scientists have made a really narrow gap there for people to walk through so that the horses can't get in, and that doesn't really make any difference. I don't know why they did that. There's even a much smaller gap on the other side that goes onto the plains or the swamp on the other side. And over here there's a bit of a corral for the horse riders that come in here and camp about. I think most of the responsible horse riders will use this area and put their horses into the corral itself. It's logical to do that. They've got a little area where they can feel kind of safe and be amongst each other rather than the other area. And I showed some of this on one of my recent videos from January trip. You may or may not recognise some of it, but this is Bentley Plains, and Moscow Villa is in the distance over there. It's an old hut which was built quite some time ago after the Second World War, and it's been kept in reasonably good condition. I did want to show it, but with the people there, I'm not going to go in there and stuff around. It's not worth it. Maybe another day. But we've been here many times, stayed in Moscow Villa quite a few times, and it's a very nice little place to be when it's cold and wet outside. But for some reason the High Country Huts Association, I think, have removed some of the bunks out of the hut itself, which is a bit disappointing. They've left two sort of beds, if you want to call it that, there, whereas it had room for a lot more. And not all that we always use them. Quite often one or two would use the lower one and use the upper ones for storage, and then we'd have stretchers on the floor. But they do tend to remove stuff. I was just talking about this earlier on the radio, where one of the huts that we've stayed at many times, which is a really manky hut, horseyard hut, they've removed all the bunks out of there. You just have room for 6 people to sleep off the ground, and they've taken all those away, and what you've got left now is basically a horrid dirt floor. There used to be some really horrible carpet on it, but it kept the dirt off. And now all it does is just water leaks in, gets muddy, and the hut is pretty much unusable for anything other than sitting in there in a chair, I think. And in some respects, I think that's what the Huts Association wants to happen to all the huts. They don't want people to actually use them. They want them there as museum pieces to go in, take a look, take a photograph, and then piss off. Which I think is somewhat the wrong idea. I've often felt that if you don't lose something, you end up not appreciating it, and then you end up losing it. I think the idea should be to encourage the use of the huts, and I'll go and have a look at the hut now. Whether it's summer, winter, an emergency or not, I think there's no reason why you can't use them, and the more you use them, I think the more you appreciate what you've got. You're never going to stop all the graffiti that goes on with these. Now, some idiots have gone in here and ripped some of the roof palings out after it's just been rebuilt. Go figure. I've got no idea what causes people to do shit like this, but they're always brain dead in the world. You can't make laws against it. The fireplace has been replaced after it was destroyed with whatever reason, too much fires and just general age perhaps. But I really do believe that if you make proper use of these things, encourage people to look after them, then it's going to be something that people will appreciate and look after for years and years to come. Not everybody's a prick, not everybody's going to destroy something. Sometimes accidents happen, but I think in the main, if you encourage the use rather than discourage, people will take more note of what it is and what you get with it. Now this shelter is being designed really, I think, for the horse riders. This great big table here is where they put their saddles and boots and things. There used to be quite a few more hangers off the ceiling where you could hang your saddles and stuff on. We were here once from memory when this table was completely covered in all sorts of horse riding gear. Very, very sodden, being a wet time out. But I don't know how much it gets used now. It changed a little bit since those years. And this fireplace, I don't think you can see it, but it's got to be the worst fireplace ever anywhere. There's a great big hole underneath. I think the intention here was that you put a fire underneath, not down the bottom here. I think that was for storing wood and drying it, but put the fire in the middle bit there, and then you could barbecue on the top. But what's happened is that steel plate that's in the middle there has completely burnt away. There's a big hole in it now. Everything falls down, and the stovepipe there is totally bent and destroyed. It doesn't draw smoke at all. When we camped here early January, we had the fire going in here because it was so wet outside, but the whole place was just full of smoke all the time. It was pretty dreadful. So one day maybe somebody might actually rebuild that and make it into something half decent and get away with the concept of having a two-part thing there. Just have a fire in there and just have it for warming, and nobody really needs to have a barbecue plate there. Most campers nowadays will have their own way of cooking their foods. And we've got our other fireplaces here, pretty typical around the area. They get cleaned out every so often, which is fine, which means people don't put ash all over the place. And the long drop, there are more of these about. Some places that should have them don't have them, and you'll always find that these places, or these, can be destroyed by idiots again. Honestly, it just beggars belief that people have got to be so bad. Now this door should be closed, keeps out any smaller animals maybe, and this has generally been in good condition. It's been recently rebuilt and they've got new foundations there. The parks get people to come in and pump out all the effluent, and it's all good to go again once that's been done. But this is not a bad place. It gets a lot of visitors throughout the year, especially summertime, though it's kind of a mixed place. There's a creek, or the river, Timbara River I think it is, that runs further downward, just between here and Moscow Villa, but it's not swimmable or anything else. We take water out of it for washing and so forth, but it's not really much at all. So from that perspective, you know, it's a nice place, but there's not that much to do here in that respect. Walks and so on, yep. And here we've got this little entry here, so to stop the horses going through. It just about stops people from going through. It is that narrow. Right now, going through there, my camera with the microphone, or the phone with the microphone off to the side on the gimbal, just fits through. And thankfully, I'll breathe in and I can get through as well. So I don't know what sort of horse sizes they were measuring when they made that gap, but I think that's what it was clearly designed to do, is to stop horses going through. I doubt it was for motorbikes or anything like that, because there's not really much to ride around in here unless you want to drown your bike in the river that flows through. And try to get this thing, there we go. This is the plains that are on basically both sides of the campsite. It's swampy depending on time of year. Come in here at wintry time and you will be covered in leeches, and I wouldn't be surprised if I pick up a few leeches right now, because they just love this type of environment. And that be the river, almost dead still, but and not very deep. I think on our trip, the kids that we did coming here in January, the kids did go playing around in there at one stage. I don't know why, but kids being kids, that's what they do. And if you want to get across, you've got to jump. It just wanders and meanders all over the plains here, and eventually goes off down into the coast. So there's the campsite up there, but it's a nice stopover, and I think if you've got a group of people here, want to get away from the hurly-burly of city life, or even the large country town like Bairnsdale, it's not a bad place to come. There's lots of wildlife. We've camped here when there's all sorts of critters come around. Little flame robins and kookaburras come in regularly, and you'll see other things like kangaroos and whatnot here fairly reasonably. Deer, haven't seen any deer around here from memory, and not sure about the wild horses. There may have been some time around. But this is the back end view of the campsite, and that's about it for Bentley Plains. So if you ever happen to be out this way at the right time of year, you might get yourself and get lucky and be able to camp here. It is not too bad. Certainly camped here quite a few times and had a good time, as the cans on the table attest. This might be a good time this year as well. So on that note, I'll leave it. Spoke too soon. Here comes Graham, and I think he found a bit of lumber that might keep us going for the night, and maybe he can leave some stuff for somebody else for another night as well. So we'll see what happens. Problem with wood around here is that invariably it's always wet. Doesn't matter what time of year you do, it's always going to be soggy. Now, if I can get Graham to go the right way instead of dragging it through the mud hole, otherwise we're going to have lots of wet wood, or muddy wood anyway, and I don't really want a chainsaw. I bought something different. I wasn't expecting that one. Oh yeah. Anyway, this one looks like it's relatively dry, so she could be a good one. Now I don't know what noticed what, but thunder. There's freaking big bull ants in this bit of wood that, as I started cutting, one of the bastards went straight in my shoe and started injecting its love medicine into my ankle, and it bloody hurt. Thankfully, I've got a pretty good tolerance for wasps, bees and such, and ant stinging insect bites. Hard to tell how big they are, but they're about an inch long. There we go, there's a finger with a glove on top. Why is the glove on there? It was a very, very good day today, around 31 degrees or so, and now it's just turned to crap. And I think the next 4 days is going to be very much the same. And I think my travelling companion is just listening to some chainsawing videos there.
And ant bite videos.
Ant bite videos, yes, we all know about ant bite videos. And we've managed to collect some guests, campers who are on the other side that you can't actually see now. I'm not going out there because it's raining. But yes, I think they finally got their van up after about 2 or 3 hours just before the rain started, and now it's pretty ordinary weather, but that's what you get for the high country. And I'd rather be out here than in Melbourne or anywhere else for that matter, regardless whether it's wet or dry. Well, morning is broken, and along with a couple of heads which are rather sore, but it wasn't a bad night at all. Bit soggy, and it's a good thing we had the hut and a little bit of the veranda to sit under, and we eventually got the fire going after quite a bit of effort, given that all the wood around here is soggen. Not much you can do about that. And we've left a pile of wood, wet wood, for the next traveller who happens to come by. It might be dry by then, but what's it like out here? Little flame robins are bobbing on the fence posts already. Haven't heard any kookaburras yet, and you might be able to see out there it's rather foggy. So, not sure what sort of day we're going to get today. It doesn't look too bad. It's not overly cloudy. We had a bit of rumbling of thunder last night, but that was about it. And yeah, it wasn't cold, even though it was clear skies all night long. And the rain eased off probably by about 11 o'clock or whatever it was when we went to bed finally. And now ready for another adventurous day of four-wheel driving, hopefully. So we'll see what happens. It's a fairly steep track actually. It doesn't look it, but like anything that comes on video, it's not rough, but it is actually quite steep. So coming down, going past. You can hear my diesel in the background, but we just thought we'd stop here and take a bit of a look-see at an area that got burnt a few years ago and just the recovery. It's quite amazing when you have a look at everything with that was burnt is now virtually growing in green foliage up the trunks and everywhere else. So it's the sort of stuff that you experience in the Australian bush, and nothing unusual about it whatsoever. 12 months and you've got everything sprouting up again. It's not just the trees themselves getting more and more foliage on them, it's the undergrowth that comes up as well, which makes it a real problem at times for fire management and so forth, because everything under here that might have been burnt is now just absolutely full of scrub. As you can see, all the bracken here, same thing, it grows everywhere and very, very quickly. Well, all I can say is that day two was a bit of a sad affair. We didn't get to do much interesting four-wheel driving. There was a little bit involved in there. A couple of tracks were quite steep, but I wouldn't call them challenging or anything like that. In the wet they would be diabolical, but as it is, these things sort of happen. You can't do much about it when they come and grade tracks and all the rest, and you don't know about it. But the most disappointing thing of all was we drove all the way to the Snowy and got there fairly early, so we thought we'd take the Injigudbi track earlier on to Native Dog Flat, where we are at the moment, and it was closed. And apparently Cobboris track is also closed as we got to Native Dog Flat, where we are right now. Actually quite lucky to get this spot. This is where we've camped quite a few times over the years, summer and winter, and the place is otherwise chockers. All the campsites are sort of almost completely taken up by people, which is kind of surprising, and the other horse yard further down is also got campers in there, so unless somebody had just left from here, I can't see why anyone would have not taken this spot. So it's interesting to see why we got it, but we're happy we did. Didn't have to go too far to get our campsite. So today we are tenting it, and our next mission may be to see if we can find some firewood, because there's absolutely none here at all, though there is plenty on the side of the road there which we probably can cut and drag down. So we'll see what we do. But yeah, hopefully it'll be a reasonable night tonight. It's been a beautiful day today, quite warm and hot in fact. And the snowy, it was stifling, so that was one reason why we decided to come here, because it was just sandy sort of a campsite, not too bad, but very, very hot and sticky, and obviously lots of horses there because the place just stunk of horses. So anyway, we're here now and we have to replan our next few days. And this is the Nicholson River, very beginning of it, and stretches all the way to the coast. And we've camped once at a caravan park on the Nicholson River at the far end, and this is not quite the headwaters, but pretty close. And we've been here when it's actually near the bridge that crosses the river. It's actually been frozen over, so it can get very, very cold here because we're about 1400 metres now. And you probably can see on there, there's lots of little horsey droppings all over the place. There are plenty and plenty of wild horses around here. We've seen them here in the past, and some of the hunters come around and try to catch them, but I don't think they have that much luck, and I think it's still illegal to actually do it for some reason. And you would think that they'd allow it to become a legal activity so you could get rid of some of them, because they reckon the horses are a problem. Nowhere near the problem, I don't think, is the feral pigs, wild dogs, and other feral creatures that are around here. Deer are probably in bigger numbers than the horses, and I'd say they probably cause more damage than the horses do. But there's something there that prevents proper culling of the horses. They wanted to shoot them, which is kind of ridiculous when people are actually happy to go out and catch them. There we are, another day at the office. We managed to find some wood not far from here, dragged it in, chopped it up, all good to go. Better than I think some of the others over yonder who have been struggling to find twigs and things like that. They've got all the gear in the world, but nothing to cut wood with, which is rather strange. So anyway, it's the way they like to travel. That's their choice. So we've got all our camping gear and tents up. It's looking fairly good. The weather's not too bad actually at the moment. Hopefully it stays this way and doesn't start pissing down rain, and we shall be some very happy chappies. Now, one of the things that we've been doing on our cruises for quite some time is trying to find out how to make the quickest and easiest meals possible, so that you don't have to use lots of cooking implements, minimise washing, preferably down to the nothing more than a fork cleaning. And my latest endeavour is one of these $50 Lion 12-volt portable stoves. I've used it once before and on this cruise, and all I do is take pre-made meals that I make at home, steam dump. Doesn't mean I've dumped in there with a steaming turd. It's actually steamed dumplings, and I just make these up, freeze them after they've been cooked up and everything else, and then they're allowed to defrost in the fridge that comes along with us. And I put them in the little 12-volt oven, and it works a treat. I have not had a bad meal yet with these, and rather than paying the $200 to $300 or whatever it is for those special Australian-made cookers, this thing is just perfect. I could put 2 of these in there if I wanted to, and it'll just cook it up in about 20 or 30 minutes. It's eating temperature, and it doesn't actually drain the battery as much as I actually thought it might. So this thing is really effective. So anyone who's wanting to make... somebody is trying to make the fire go a little bit better with an electric chainsaw. There we go. There he goes, messing up my little talk. You can't have everything. So anyway, anybody who is contemplating getting a little portable oven for cooking and so on, these things do work really, really well. For $50, I don't think you can go wrong. However, I would encourage you to have 2 batteries in the car if you're going to use it, just in case you drain one of the batteries. But Mr. Graham working on the fire. Well, day 3 now at Native Dog Flat. It was actually a pretty good night. It wasn't very cold. Had a good fire going. It actually looks like it's going to be a very, very nice day. Tent just on the ground doing a little bit of drying from the dew because it was a very clear night. You can see the sky out there is looking actually pretty nice. So with the tracks being closed, we're going to head towards Benamba and Omeo, and then sort of south west from there, Dogs Grove direction and whatever, to see what we can find as far as some decent driving goes. It was a bit of a bust yesterday, unfortunately. All the wild horses are gone. We had an absolute herd here at the campsite, scraping and chewing grass right next to our tents and all the rest. And then, I don't know, there might have been about 8 or 10 of them all told. Some young'uns and some old uns, and we heard them all night actually, neighing away. And then eventually they came to this little campsite, so obviously they frequent this place very, very often, and they didn't seem to be too perturbed by the fact that there were campers about. So, wish I got some video of it, but by the time the sun got up well enough to get something decent, they'd finally decided to move on. So we'll see what today brings, and hopefully some decent driving for a change, and good weather to go with it. Well, we've just stopped over to have a bit of a look at Mount Delusion Hut once again. I think we've been coming here for the last 20 years or so, and surely maybe more than that, because I do remember the very first time we came across it. You could actually sleep in it if you really needed to. It was still in pretty manky condition then, but she's really gone into a bit of disrepair. It'd be a renovator's delight, I think, now. I'm not too sure what the intent of keeping this hut going like this is, but there you go. She's a bit of a très ordinaire residence by the best of terms, and yeah, they clearly want people to stay out of it. We're going to go turn around and go down Wentworth Road to the Wentworth River and try to get across there. Looking at going to Cam's Top Place, Murdering Spur or Messmate, and see what they're like as tracks go. Not much else. There's a dam here at Mount Delusion Hut. No goldfish in the pond, and across the dam on the far side there's a fire shelter that is probably in worse repair than the Mount Delusion Hut itself. But if things got bad, maybe it would be usable. I don't know. I'll go and have a sticky beak in it and see what it's like. Then again, I won't, because there's a Menke Creek. No, they've barriered it off anyway. Don't want people to go there. So this is the infamous or famous Mount Delusion Hut, tourist destination for thousands. And here we have Mcdonald's hut. I can't even remember how many times we've stayed here. We've come here usually when it's been winter and it's been miserably wet and cold, and this has actually served as a pretty good overnight stay, given that there's not much room here for camping. It's a little bit worse for wear than what it used to be, but it's still better than putting up a wet tent and putting back a wet tent later on.
Filled in the bog hole?
Yep, the bog hole at the back has been filled in. But like most of these things, they get damaged a little bit too much. Just down here, that used to be a massive bog hole which people used to see how far they could drive before they got stuck. So that was pretty manky actually. But other than that, if you're struggling for a place to camp and it's getting late and it's winter and miserable, this is better than nothing. Far, far better than nothing. So yeah, the water tank is still there, dating back from who knows when. It's been riveted together, so that's showing its age. But yeah, and it's incorrectly marked on the maps too. Where the hut shows on the top road, it's actually on the bottom road, so I don't know how they got that so wrong. But once again, we've got a rather nice day, and we're going to be heading out towards Dargo Way now. Don't know whether we can do Messmate or Murdering Spur and whatever. That'll just take us north again, so I'm not sure. We just got to work out what we want to do, and then we're going to do Conway and Billy Goat Bluff. This is a little bit steeper track, nothing overly bad, but I just thought I'd see if I could get some video of it going down. Bloody hard to get the adjustment sometimes right, and I don't think it'll probably show up all that fantastic on video. They never do, but at least we're finally getting a little bit of low range work in. Yep, finally a few tracks that might be of slightly better interest than what we've been doing so far. Getting kind of fed up with the dirt roads where everything's been graded and made pretty ordinary. Not that this is difficult, but it's just a little bit more interesting, finally low range into something. Well, that looked as tame as anything. Dargo, been here 6 million times at least, but why not take another video or photo of the place while we're here? Might as well, might as well. Place is packed as always on a weekend or whatnot, and cars going from one end of town to the other basically. Okay, we've come down to where are we? Colin's flat and Colin's hut here. Don't know why I had a brain fart and forgot about it, and thankfully I think I just got you out of the picture. But anyway, this is Colin's hut. We've camped here once before, not at the hut, further down, and I'm not too sure what the guts of this place is like at the moment, but let's have a look inside. It is still frickin' hot and muggy, unbelievable to be honest. Now, this place has got a concrete floor, it's got bunks, it's as filthy as anything. I don't think this place has been cleaned for a long time, but there have been people here. There's firewood in here. You could say it's habitable. It's not perfect, but if it's going to be pissing down rain, it's not so bad. You could put a stretcher there, and somebody else could put a stretcher here or there or whatever, and actually survive.
Like a broom would fucking work wonders.
It would. Somebody's probably burnt the broom, but so this was obviously once something quite respectable. There is a mine here as well. Now, I did too. So what shall we? And there's a long drop up there, so that's always a handy thing to have nearby. The entrance to the mine. We'll see what happens when we go in. See if there's any bats might come out. It's very, very shallow and narrow, so we've got to trying to get this gimbal adjusted so that it looks good. There we go. I think it's recording something. Probably making the whole thing look really, really noisy, but it gives a rat's. And there's a grate that goes down into a hollow with a ladder and bits and pieces. And I don't know where this other thing goes. There's another ladder that goes somewhere, which I can't. Let's see if I can get this. Okay, let's go and point it down again. And it goes even further. Who knows what's down there, but I'm not going to go looking for it. It goes in, and then another hollow. Somebody's made their hand jobby of a ladder just to see if they can explore. I'll give up on that. And there's Graham doing his video
So here we are.
in the hole in the ground.
Gimbal log jam.
It's actually much more pleasant in here because it's a hell of a lot cooler. Given outside it's still frickin' steamy. And that grating used to have locks on them, but they've been broken off obviously, so more people have been exploring the holes in the ground. Wonder how many dead bodies are in there. Anyway, let's go back outside. It's still early. Man, cannot imagine the people who... Oh, the heat is just something different. Oh, humidity is incredible here at the moment. If that doesn't mean that there's a thunderstorm coming, I don't know what does. It's a sort of a pleasantish area. We've, as I said, we've camped here once before. Many years ago. It was about 42 degrees. And we came from the direction that I'm pointing at now, which is opposite to where we came in today, and you can't actually get through there anymore. You could do that once many years ago, across the river through a fairly steep drop. And yeah, we ended up camping here, and we sat in the river all day long because it was so hot. Absolutely stinking it was, and the river was just so good. But I don't think we're going to go in the river today. Almost could, but if we stay here in this Mcmichael hut, then I don't think we'll bother wandering into the river or anything else. Okay, we've disorganised ourselves and rearranged the vehicles. Got a place for a fire pit. There is a fireplace inside the old Mcmichael hut, as I think you may have seen, but it's still supposedly 31 degrees here, so we ain't having a fire inside, and it does feel like it's going to be raining, so don't know. But anyway, and why do they call it a still? Because the still owner is still going on while the Husqvarna owner has finished the work and gone home for a meal and already drinking a beer. Well, we're here at the start of Billy Goat Bluff track early this morning. Weather looking really nice at the moment. Blue skies everywhere, bit of cloud over the bluff area, but depends which way the clouds are going, whether it'll roll over or not. You never can tell around here. We were looking at another track, but then with the weather the way it was looking, thought why not do Billy Goat. The scenic views are quite impressive there, so always worth having a look. So we'll see how we go. And Billy Goat always changes, it's never the same. So I've done it many times, even in the pouring rain, and it hasn't always been really that bad. So a lot of people say it's terrible, but we don't think so. So we shall travel on. Well, we're at the helipad on Billy Goat at the moment. Right on the left there, or centre of screen now, is where the Pinnacles is and the fire tower. We might go and have a look at that. But as you can see, there's now some dark clouds rolling in, so whether they get above everything by the time we get there, who knows. If it does, we won't bother going up there. It's not worth it, because you won't see anything. Though then again, no clouds in the other direction. Yes, there is. Yeah, you never really know what you're going to get up here. Track's been graded a fair bit, so the section to the helipad is virtually nothing at the moment. Don't know what they've done to the tracks further on, so hopefully they haven't gone and buggered that up as well. Well, nearly at the top of Billy Goat. It was fairly rocky. It wasn't overly difficult or anything. A lot of scrabbling here and there because of the loose rocks and things like that. But the weather has changed dramatically. It is freezing up here at the moment. But the views are still pretty good. Can't complain about that. So whether we'll go to the Pinnacles itself, to the fire tower, not so sure. There's the fire tower. First time we came up here many years ago, it was just a ramshackle timber edifice, and then they rebuilt it. It's all steel now, so it'll withstand any bushfires that may happen to come up this way, and probably provide more comfortable quarters for the fire watchers. It's actually snowing. I thought it might. There you go. It was cold enough for that. I wonder if we're going to have snow tonight. Well, we decided to take the Mount Kent road to the helipad because the other road went really nowhere. very deceptive. Old tracks being marked on modern maps, but there you go. And this is actually quite specky up here. It's not snowing anymore, or sleet as it more closely resembled. And the views from here are quite interesting as well, compared to what was up at the pinnacles. Very rocky area. And you can see the clouds rolling in over there, which had the sleet or snow in it. And some of the typical countryside here is very open, sort of a clearing up on the hilltop up there, which I think is natural. And then just the rolling hills over there, all the mountains. So just a bit of scenic panning for some entertainment. And it is cold up here though. That wind has got a real bite to it. And Rosella's chattering and flying past. You can see by the cars that hasn't been a muddy trip this weekend. And in fact mine looks like it's just been washed. That's probably from the rains from last night. Here at Horseyard Flat and Horseyard Hut, a hut that we've camped up numerous times when the weather's been really bad and horrible. It's just done us well, but it hasn't really been looked after very well. And they're saying the area is currently closed due to refurbishment works. Yeah, I'm wondering what sort of refurbishment they're doing. This hut used to have bunks in it. You can see in the darkness here, running along both virtually the back wall and the sides. You could sleep about 6 to 8 people in here. It was tight but comfortable, especially when it was wet. And it had some really manky carpet on the floor here. And that, even though it was manky, it kept the dust and the dirt off your sleeping gear and whatnot and your feet. And the fireplace over there is in worse condition than it's ever been. I think they've pulled it down now. It's just that people trash the place. Might not be salubrious, but why they have to bugger it up all the time is beyond belief. So I don't think they're having anybody staying here now with the door being ripped off. And we did a repair to the door last time we camped here. It was some time ago. Made it functional, but now it's dysfunctional again. And this is what the ground around here is always like, being dug up by the four-wheel drives, making the biggest bog holes they can find and just making them worse and worse. It's not really a great old campsite. I wouldn't sort of camp here. There's an area further back where the river goes past, and it's not too bad. We'll see how well I can steer with my left hand and still hold this thing out with my right hand. If it doesn't work, I shall bring it inside. Road to Mount Wellington. It's been the rocky road all the way through actually. It'll be interesting to see how the gimbal tackles this sort of operation. There's no way that I'll be using my big one to do this. Even this is starting to feel a little bit on the weighty side, sticking out like this. Just hope nothing falls off. Going over that way now. Fair enough. Just about at the peak of Mount Wellington. Not the New Zealand Wellington, the Australian one, Victorian one to be precise. There's some views off the hillsides. I shall pull up here and do some further videoing. I don't know how many people are aware of this location, but the views here are quite spectacular. overlooking towards the Howard High Plains over that way. Tambaretha Road runs along there, and we've got some fairly spectacular looking rock formations and things here as well. And there's the cairn for Mount Wellington. So fairly scenic for Australian countryside, and it is so cold up here at the moment. Well, we're on front of Kelly's hut, which I believe has been sort of refurbished. It was pretty much uninhabitable. In fact, Mcdonald's hut was a better hut than what this was a yearish or so ago. So we'll have a look at it and see what improvements have been made, if any. Apparently it has been fixed up somehow, so we'll see shortly whether it's anything decent or not. There's a coach bolt or whatever stuck there holding the door in, so I doubt that they want anybody to use it. I'll camera inside and get some sort of an idea of what it looks like. Oh yeah, no fireplace there or anything else, so I don't think they want anybody to do anything in here other than watch it rot away from lack of use. So on we go. If we can't get the other hut that we're looking at, then we'll just go back to the horse paddock and camp there for the night. It's as good as anything. And this is Mcmichael's hut, a place we've stayed at numerous times. It's been a couple of times when it's been almost snowing outside, and that it's kept us nice and cosy. Ideally, 2's company and 3's is a crowd, but we have had 4 in here. It's not a massive hut, but you can squeeze people in here. 3 will sort of fit in, no drama. A few more than that and it starts getting a bit tight, but when the weather outside is crap, you can't complain about it. Somebody's removed the fridge and brought in a manky table to replace it with. So anyway, a lot of deer hunters come out this way and stay in this place quite regularly, and can already feel the chill factor. It is quite cool. Picnic bench is new. Fireplace or fire pit out here is new, and get it back in there. What is nice is there's a flowing river through here, or creek, and it's always got relatively clean water, though I wouldn't necessarily go drinking it without boiling it, because there are cattle up here and you probably want to make sure that you're not catching things that you shouldn't catch or want to catch. But it's quite a pretty little spot there, and freshly flowing. Looks very clean. I think there's probably fish here and there in there, but you've just got to work for it. But that's the fun of fishing, so they say. A bit like golf to me. It's just a good walk ruined. And looks like we'll be setting up here for the night, which is quite good. Otherwise would have been camping out in the paddocks. Well, it doesn't look like it'll rain, but it'll be pretty bloody yucky anyway.
Okay, early morning at Mcmichael's hut. It's about 7 o'clock. There's a lot of frost on the ground, and it's probably been down to 0 overnight. You can see here in this puddle just in front of us here, ice has started to form. So yeah, it was a very cold night. But sleeping bag made it all nice and snug. Anyway, this is the last day and now heading home after 5 days. Good trip, not much four-wheel driving, but a little bit just to keep us interested. Saw a bit of wildlife, emus, kangaroos. Yeah, so anyway, until next cruise, adieu.